Okay. Well, I see that at least you are all awake after a wonderful lunch, and I suppose it is our duty with my starting and with the whole panel afterwards to make sure that you will stay awake. But I don't think it is going to be a problem because the topic is absolutely really interesting. Now, I do also have some slides, and I have to just see that whether they actually do work. Yes, they do indeed. Fantastic. I just go one back. So. What I'm going to talk about is give you an example of something really concrete, let's say a project that we have started within EAT Food. Andy was mentioning this morning about one of the kind of a focus areas in a way, which is protein diversification. And so we have been looking at the strategy, what do we need to do within EAT Food when it comes to proteins and protein diversification particularly. And first of all, we said that, okay, what does protein diversification actually really mean? Well, it's not alternative only, right? It is also the proteins that we are eating today. It will be also maybe completely something else that we are going to eat in the future. And so this is based on the research, but also on the innovative products and services and the whole ecosystem that we need to build. And so on these thoughts, because at the same time, there's a huge hype in the market when it comes to proteins. So you know that there's something like, I think, 3 billion euros that is only invested from food industry, or at least they would like to invest in protein diversification. And consumers are, of course, at the same time saying that, okay, well, I would like to make different shifts, and I'm really saying different shifts in my way of eating and my eating habits, but to what? What is it that we need to do? So these are the thoughts that we started to go around with. And then we, with EAT Food Partners, so we thought about that, well, there's also a lot of barriers as well in terms of a direction, but also how to make a reality of these things that we actually really want to do. And so we said we need to create a think tank. And think and do tank, because we don't only think, we also react. And so this is where we started to creating and having this idea that, okay, that we should really have a kind of a group of people, pan-European, from research, from industry, from basically universities equally, startups, basically the whole ecosystem that is involved, and also consumers that are involved in a food area and food systems, to think about that, okay, what does it mean when we talk about protein diversification? And actually this has become a really huge thing, and as you can see probably from these pictures, we are not really talking about only alternatives, we are really talking about protein diversification. So this is not some kind of like a sect that we want to transform you to something else. We really want to raise questions that how can we make this shift that is absolutely necessary, by the way? How can we do it in a way that is going to be very good for people, very good for planet, but equally very good for economy? So that, and at the same time taking into, with us, basically the whole ecosystem in a way that we don't leave anyone behind, no farmers, no consumers, no anyone else. So it's a very big question, right? I think you agree with me. But nevertheless, this is where we work on. We just published actually last week, I think, or 2 weeks, last week? Was it last week, Mirva? Yes, I think last week, approximately last week, protein diversification policy recommendation paper. And so what I'm going to show you a little bit is the outcomes of this paper, like some of the main points. There are about 7 major points that are addressing some of the barriers that, where do we see that some of the changes need to take place. By the way, we are not a lobbying organization. We are really there to showcase evidence-based and basically practitioners' ideas on, and not only ideas, but what is the direction where we can go and what are the barriers and how we can lift those barriers. Because it is not only great to point out the problems, but indeed we actually really need to find those solutions. And we need to find those solutions because the fact is that we have this urgency And it's not a fake urgency, really. It is a real urgency. And, at the same time, the younger generation is there to say, well, what is the food that we are going to eat in the future? Farmers are going to say, how are we going to produce? What kind of a food we are going to produce in the future? So these are really crucial questions, because at least to my knowledge, we still need to eat every day. So this is where we go. So to go very quickly through, I don't have a huge amount of time, so I cannot go very much into details, but I will, you see there a QR code where you can actually download as well the report, and you can see there more details, and obviously we are all available as well further for your questions. So first of all things is that actually, did you know that protein diversification is actually the most efficient and effective way and investment to go towards sustainable food systems? I mean, basically the euros that are invested in protein diversification is actually hitting many of the boxes that we need to hit currently when it comes, and it is really the most efficient. So this is absolutely something that, you should not be blinded by this idea that, okay, it's about alternative proteins. Not only, it's about the protein diversification we talk here. Then other turning point is the fact that it is now, as I said, there's really an urgency and we need to tackle it now. There's a huge boom, in the market. And quite frankly, if you look at a little bit the products that are there, not great. Not great. So we really need to do much better, and I'm sure that there's ways also of doing these things much better. And again, I'm not only talking about alternatives, but I'm talking alternatives inside of the sustainable food systems and of leading towards protein diversification, which is then sustainable on its part. So also, did you know that in Europe we have a huge amount of research that is actually addressing questions on protein diversification, whether it is on proteins like crops, whether it is in terms of what kind of proteins we can extract, but also on cell ag. It can be also things that are related to fermentation. So these are kind of all technologies. Some of them are new, some of them are old, and some of them are kind of a hybrid of a mixture of a new and old. But in Europe, we are absolutely fantastic in creating the research. We even have startups that are like really top notch in this world. And what happens then is that they have to wait quite a while before they can get their products or even, something to the market, or they can sell them in the market. And this is, of course, for a very good reason per se, because we have a regulatory part in Europe, which is really high level. It's really something, it is a benefit for us, because European food is very much looked up as well as being, safe and something to really nourish. It is studied, it is researched, but the thing is that some of these regulatory aspects were done 30 years ago. So they probably don't fit anymore into the things that what is it that we want to do, and also on this urgency of transforming the whole food system. So this is where we need more national strategies, and not only agri-strategy, let's say health strategy and economic strategy. We need one agri-food strategies in the national levels as well, and European level, which can then push and show the direction and then have a very positive impact, for example, on EFSA, on these kind of regulatory areas. So, other thing is that, do you think that by turning everybody, for example, into vegans or vice versa, that we will solve this question? No, we wouldn't. And we really need, therefore, we need a systemic approach. So it means that we need to also at the same time understand that even if we reduce, for example, the production in some food stock and livestock, for example, what kind of an impact it will have actually in the whole food system. Likewise, in a way that, okay, if we, so what do you produce? Where do you produce? Where do you grow? Where is it made food of? And we need to understand that there are kind of like consequences in all these areas. And the systemic approach is allowing us to actually see that, okay, where is the impact going to be? If we do move one little puzzle here,
what kind of an impact it will have in the whole. And that is hugely important as well. And then obviously all the players in this food value chain has to be on board. I mean, no one can do it on their own. And there's no way that we can look at, for example, industry, well, why don't you bring in better, products? No, we need farmers, we need food industry, we need consumers and everything in between. And also retailers, because that is obviously a really important part. Then we have protein diversification. It does require comprehensive policy. Now, as I said, EU is actually currently making a policy on proteins. There's also has been, for quite some time now, a plan for sustainable food strategy, but it seems to be that somehow that will be maybe postponed a little bit. Nevertheless, these strategies are absolutely important. In these kind of key areas, the policy has to somehow follow, because often policies, they follow. They are not front runners. But we need policymakers to have the attention for them to listen, for example, the experts, and then actually be able to make policies that are actually most comprehensive and actually that are supporting, for example, this transformation on protein diversification. Then regulatory process itself, I mean, I touched base a little bit this case of a couple of startups and scale-ups that, cannot make themselves, cannot put the products in the market. What really breaks my heart, is that when I see them going to America, nothing against Americans, by the way, but they go to America, they go to Singapore, because simply otherwise they got busted. And so the last point, so we really need to do something on this area. And then the last one is the need for public funding and investment in R&D and infrastructure. The future of food is probably going to be very much related to biotech. It is probably in the areas where it is not only today, but you know what? In generally, I think we heard today, Julia was also presenting the amount of funding that goes to food. It's relatively small, Is it because, we have been kind of a more stable in the way how we have been producing and where the innovation actually was really needed. But the future, how it is done, is going to be rather different. And this is something we are going to talk on the panel. But so it means also that the funding itself has to follow. Now, there is absolutely need for public funding and also for private funding. These two funding areas have a completely different purpose. So often public funding is more to the longer term. It is also supporting infrastructure changes, because this is probably something that will be needed as well. And then the private funding is there to actually accelerate, be fast, understand the market, understand the consumers, understand the profession, because probably the profession as well is going to change pretty much. Let me see if there's, sorry, there was 3 more. And so, as said, the farmers are, obviously they are really hugely important for this whole process. I mean, otherwise we will not have food, and we cannot imagine agri-food, let's say, value chain without them. But they have to be brought in this whole process, and they have to be part of it. And then policy support in going to market. I mean, what kind of a market do you imagine that we are going to have in the future? Is it going to be the same market simply because we have to eat every day? Probably not. Probably it is going to be also in terms of a bioeconomy. It's going to have a lot of impact as well, that, when we are asking farmers, for example, to grow something, we already know what are the parts that are going where in the market, what they can sell of that one to different players in not necessarily everything for food. But that's also important. And that's where, the economist should be also on board to imagine what kind of a market is out there, what kind of a market we are going to actually really create. And then education and attracting new talents. I think it was already mentioned today as well that, we cannot just keep on giving exactly the same education. At least there has to be models that are a little bit more forward-looking, and basically seeing that, okay, well, even for farmers, what is the farming of the future? What is going to be maybe the other food producers of the future? Is the is the food only going to be produced inland, or is it also indeed going to be produced in the laboratories? And then just to show you that there are real faces behind this think tank. It's indeed a pan-European. There are scientists, there are industry folks, startups, some of them you probably may even already know. And our kind of like very humble way is really to make things happen. And we hope that at least in the European scope by 2050, which is okay, kind of afar, but we would really already have affordable, great products available for the consumers. And this is what we really work for. And then again, that are sustainable, very good for people, good for the planet, and very good for the economy as well. I promised as well to take this opportunity, and I hope that some of these things are already bursting in your mind, some ideas, maybe some things that you would like to propose within EAT Food. Because actually I forgot to tell that I'm from EAT Food, but maybe that was already said. And one of the things what we do is that we have open calls. So for example, one of the mission program funding call has been already launched. It is going to be open all year round, so even next year. So don't be afraid if you look at there's one deadline that is for 16th of November. It's not your last date to propose great ideas and innovations that you can have. But have a look. Once again, there's a QR code. We have actually 3 missions that I think that are very, very important for you to retain. Because once again, even on this protein diversification, we really hit all those boxes. So one of them is healthier lives through food. Second one is reducing risk for a fair, resilient food system, or vice versa, and net zero food system. And I cannot really find a lot of other focus areas where we really are hitting all these 3 boxes. So you can see the importance of this focus area and or this focus, in a way, focus topic maybe is more relevant. And and we need all of you as well. I mean, because I'm sure that you're not here by chance. You're here indeed like to find your way as well to make this transformation. And this is actually what we really want. So few more examples on the funding opportunities as well, and then also some of the things that we have already achieved to kind of secure for protein diversification. But this is obviously a just for you to give a little bit of a flavor. Otherwise, I think that I will simply stop here. And we are going to hear about those kind of a future production ways on cell ag, maybe on other things as well. And I hope that none of you are so scared that you will run away, but actually stay here and listen to the panel and this discussion that will take place. So thank you very much.